Quick intro, because I think I forgot to talk about this, but before you watch this video or afterward, please go see my series on my internet harassers. This will really highlight mental illness, sociopaths, and narcissists like you would not believe. In fact, I just put up a video called the story of how Jawed got his name. It's really funny. Go see that one. And then I just made a police report on one of my internet sociopaths and harassers. In fact, it's about Jawed. I'll have links in the description. Go watch those videos. It'll make a lot of sense when you do. Just the stuff I'm talking about. So that's it, and enjoy the video. Hi loves, JoySparklebS. Sorry, I look a little bit of a mess. I just got out of the shower, was letting my hair dry. My hair just dries naturally because I don't care. In fact, I have a video coming out about why do I always look like this? But okay, so I wasn't gonna make a third video today, but then as I was uploading my videos, as you guys know, I try to answer the comments. By the way, if you guys comment on this video within the first couple hours, I'll probably answer. I just sit and answer comments for the first 2 or 3 hours, and so I put up my second video, and I've been kind of waiting around, and I thought, okay, well, Shane Dawson's probably not gonna put up his video till later, and he put it up. and I was just like, ah! So he put it up while I was putting up my videos, and I was just like, I have to respond. So I stopped everything to watch the video, and oh my God. So as I told you guys before, I had no interest. I had no interest in his series that Shane Dawson is doing. Because I don't care about the Paul brothers. I really don't, and that's not me being mean or shady. I have no interest. I'm not a tween, right? I covered it a little bit on the channel before, but not much, just some of the stupid antics and stuff. And I have some, I'm gonna be sharing some opinions of this here soon too, about like how bad are these people actually, because somebody left an awesome comment. If you know who you are, I was like, oh my God, this comment's good. I want to read this comment and talk about it because it gives a really interesting different perspective on, are the Paul brothers really that bad? Or is this just really stupid teenage behavior? Anyways, I digress. Okay, the video kind of freaked me out. I'm not even gonna lie. I know a lot of people, like I've seen a lot of people kind of making fun of his videos and like the music he uses and how dramatic it is. But this is a topic I talked about in depth on the last JoySparklebS channel, if you guys remember. I covered Onision extensively because of this. And in fact, Onision put up a video the other day. I don't know, I may respond to it. I don't really have any interest, but he put up a video basically kind of saying that, you know, he's realized he loved himself more than other people in the past, which is huge for him, right? That's a huge admission. Somebody said it to me and I was like, okay. This is just a subject I'm very well, how do I put that? It's gonna say very well broached on, but like, I'm not a therapist or a doctor. What I would say is I feel like I've met a lot of these people. So in the video, they talk a lot about, like, it's him and this girl, Katie Morton, who I've seen on Younow before. They talked about like narcissists and sociopaths. And it's really scary to think that 1 in every 25 people you meet is a sociopath. That's terrifying. And they don't classify it as a mental illness, but an antisocial personality. But here's my thing, if it's not a mental illness, it's an antisocial personality, well, that's a part of your personality, apparently, right? Isn't that what that's saying? Antisocial personality. Again, I'm not a doctor. Don't take this, like, take this on with a grain of salt. This is just my opinion, because people are gonna go nuts. But it just sounds like that means you're just selfish, doesn't it? Like, when they were going over the traits of what, like, you know, sociopaths are and narcissists, where it's like, sociopaths are zero empathy, narcissists have some amount of, you know, empathy and feelings, and their shit comes from trauma, but you know, they're, you know, all these different things, like it's similar to sociopath, but not like sociopath is just like you have no fucking feeling. But my thing is, that sounds like it's more of a choice or a learned trait, doesn't it? Correct me if I'm wrong, right? But I'm just saying from how it's been described on this video, it very much sounds like it's a choice. To me, it's like these people are choosing to be selfish assholes who just use people, right? Or is there a chip in the brain that's, is there some wire or nerve that's misfiring? But wouldn't that be considered a mental illness then? See, I was having a lot of thoughts about it. I haven't researched this, I'm just gonna give my opinion. Anyway, let me tell you a couple stories, because I have run into lots and lots and lots of narcissists and some sociopaths, I believe. I really do believe. Okay, where do we begin? Holy shit. Just some of the info, like I really am overwhelmed. First of all, they talked about empaths. I think I'm more of an empath, to be honest with you, which is why, like, if you remember back in the last channel, I let my channel get destroyed, putting the feelings and children, Rose Hall, of other people before myself and my own well-being when they were manipulating and they were doing awful things. So I look at myself, and I've been told before I'm more of an empath. I'm more of a, like, I feel and I empathize too much and I want to help people too much. My friend told me, she's like, you're a helper. You're a fixer. You got to fix that. You want to fix people's situations. You want to help them. And it's true. Like, that's something I actually have to work on, because those traits, like if you are an empath, if you are like, I want to help, I want to fix, that leaves you wide open for narcissists and sociopaths, because they seek people out like that. And this is something I've learned over time. So I'm going to talk about two and a half-ish stories about sociopaths and narcissists that this brought up, and I think this is why it's freaking me out so much. By the way, I'm sure you guys can relate. We've all met these kind of people, right? If we're not these kind of people, we've all met them. First of all, I want to say that I think most people can have slight traits or some traits of narcissists and sociopaths. I remember growing up, because I didn't really have anybody parenting me. There was no parenting, no morals, kind of did what I want. I was well-intended, but it took me growing up, which I think that happens though. I think kids they can be self-absorbed in general, right? Just because teenagers, because you don't know about the world, you haven't gotten into the world yet, you haven't been humbled, but there are just elements of this where I can see elements of myself that I've had to really work on. And I think that some people have tendencies of these. I think the big thing is, as long as you're aware of it, right? Like I said the other day, that when I've been talking about Peter Mon, I'm like, am I a hypocrite? Am I just like the person I'm bitching about? How do I see myself different? And this is something I need to work on. It's about, owning it and being aware, I think. But okay, I'm gonna go on the story. Sorry, I know I'm rambling, but this really freaked me out. I feel like I grew up around narcissists. I don't want to say sociopaths, because the people I grew up around, it's hard to explain. It's not, by the way, it's not every family. I'm going to be very specific, and people might be mad at me about this, and I'm going to explain why I'm going to be specific. I'm going to talk about my mother and my sister. And the reason, and I'll talk about my mom's boyfriend a little bit. And if people get upset with me and think I'm disrespecting their privacy, let me explain something. They went on Lolcal and gave interviews and said horrific things, and the majority of it lies. These two people have barely known me since I was 18 years old, and they said a lot of awful things. And I'll talk about it. I don't want to get too upset. God damn it. My mother saying horrible, horrible things to a group of people who were trying to get my boyfriend fired and ruin my life, and saying things that it's like, if you were a parent, why would you ever go on a site like Lolcal and give an interview? So they're fair game in my opinion, because they put themselves out there. Same with my sister. I had never said a negative word about my sister. I never even talked about her. In fact, funny story about my sister, she found out a few months into me doing YouTube, I was on YouTube, she was my biggest fan until the tide started to turn, until the mass of people started to turn, and she turned with them. My sister is very much keeping up with the Kardashians. Like, she's very basic bitch. She's the kind of person who would make fun of me for dressing like a hippie, but a few years later, she's doing it because it's boho chic. And I said, son, what's how on the hills do it? Like, she's very much keeping up with the Joneses. That's how my sister is, unfortunately. And it scares me because it reminds me of traits of my sister and my mother. Now, I want to say, they can empathize. It's not that I've seen them empathize, right? And I'm not trying to put them down and say they're horrible, horrible people. And I think a lot of us have grown, especially, I'll tell you what, and no disrespect, because I'm not saying everybody like this, but holy shit, the baby boomer generation had a lot of these types of people, like real narcissistic people, like a lot of our parents. That's why it's funny, people will say like our parents, a lot of our parents' generation, the baby boomers, they all act and talk and react the same way to things. It's really fucking creepy. They're very selfish, in my opinion. And granted, our generation and the millennials, we have our own shit, right? Every generation has their own shit, so I'm just calling out shit everywhere, even my own. But with the baby boomers, they are very, very selfish. It seems like a lot of them, it's a generation of people who don't want their children to do better than them because they need to feel like they are number one. It's very strange. It's very, very strange. And my mother exemplifies that. And unfortunately, I don't think my sister is see, I'm arguing with myself right now. I don't think she's 100% horrible, but she is a horrible bitch of a person, especially to people she's jealous of. And I'm somebody she's always been jealous of. It took me it probably took me up to the last 2 or 3 years to accept that. People in my life would see our relationship and they would try to tell me that, and boyfriends and people, and I'd be like, no, because my sister is, You know, she went through college, she graduated. Granted, I would have went through college and graduated, but I was told there's no more money left, and I didn't want to take out loans, and all the money went to her, which is not something she realizes. She always likes to put me down. You're an uneducated woman, I'm educated. I'm like, that's only because you got all the money. My sister was the firstborn, so she got everything, and I got hand-me-downs, which at the time I didn't mind. You know what I'm saying? Like, I look back now and I see the disparity of how unfair it was, but I don't really care. Like, it's whatever. Like, I can create my own shit, especially when I'm healthy, so it doesn't matter. But unfortunately, my sister very much took on traits of my mom. Very much took on traits of my mom. And let me give you a story. So my sister is able to have everybody give her everything she wants. I've noticed this about her. Where with me, I work in my family. I've always worked really, really hard to do things on my own, to prove myself, right? So one day I'm sitting with my sister. Oh, this story creeps me out. And we're talking about our family. And I'm the kind of person where my family has, like my mother and my sister specifically, horribly, horribly, horribly wronged me. Like stuff where it's like I'm never talking to you, and I've gone years without talking to them because of the stuff they do and how toxic they are. And this was several years ago. This was like, God, I was like mid-20s, right? So 10-ish years ago, talking to my sister, and she goes, you know, you're really not dealing with her family the right way. And I said, what do you mean? She's like, well, just because they upset you doesn't mean you cut them off. I said, it's not about upsetting me. They do horrible, horrible, horrible things. You know, you gotta set boundaries, and they're not sorry. Like, my mom's the kind of person where she will ruin your life and not be sorry about it. She'll only be sorry that she didn't get something she wants. Like, for instance, if my mother, hi mom, I'm sure you're watching, and hi sister, I know she watches too. So my mom who watches, she's only gonna be upset by this video and what I'm talking about. A, because it bruises her ego and reputation, but B, because in the stories I'm gonna tell you, she didn't get what she wanted somewhere. Does that make sense? Like, she's gonna be upset because she wanted to remove me offline. Y'all, I've had 3 interruptions. 3? God, my hands are little. 3 interruptions since I started filming. I filmed this thing the whole way through, and then the battery crapped out and I lost everything on top of somebody's knocked on the door. I've had 2 tech issues outside of that, so I hope I don't leave out any details and stuff. So where was I? It's hard to re-talk about it when I already talked about a lot of stuff. So, okay, so I'm gonna try to tell you the story about my sister and my mom. So let me give you a little background on my sister. My sister is very spoiled, was given everything, was given, you know, like, she was the firstborn, she was really doted on, so she was given cars, her college was completely paid for, which is funny because she loves to put me down about being an uneducated woman when she's so educated, even though there wasn't enough money for me. That's not something she recognizes yet, and that's fine. My grandmother paid for her college. My grandmother's a fucking saint. For any issues she and I have, she's a saint of a person because she stepped up and raised us when our pieces of shit parents didn't. She always got the best of everything, and I got whatever was left over, right? Like, she was planned, I was the unwanted kid. And I'm okay with that, as much as it sucks, because it's like, I'm an adult now, I can go create my own shit, which I did get successful, make a lot of money, and do things I wanted to do, but illnesses kind of held me back a couple times, as I've talked about, which is not something my mother and my sister have ever experienced, which is why I think they're such assholes about it. There's zero empathy. But I wouldn't say they're full-blown sociopaths because I've seen them have empathy. I don't know if I talked about this before. I've seen them have empathy, but their empathy typically will also stem from, what can I get out of this? I'm gonna use this person and help them, but what can I get out of this? And once they stop benefiting the way that they thought they were supposed to, if they don't get what they want, they're done with you and they'll destroy your life. And that's kind of how they operate. My sister isn't as bad as my mom, but over the years, like recently, she got a lot worse. So, like I said, I'm not gonna talk about the low-cost stuff right now. One day I will. I don't know if I said this before, but they went on there and said horrible shit and horrible lies. It's like, bitches, I haven't barely known you guys since I was 17 or 18 years old. You don't know anything about, you know very little about me, period. So how are you talking about me? And since my sister has admitted wrongdoing in a lot of this, and I also have a bunch of stuff to back me up, but I digress. So here is a story of my sister. So parents are divorced, hate each other. And then my grandmother is like the main parental figure for my sister and I. And then even though my mother has custody, she wasn't a very good parent. She's even admitted it. Both parents have said we weren't good parents, don't ever have kids. Like literally in front of family group gatherings, both my parents, not together, in different family places have said, I wish I never would have had kids. Because like having kids was the worst decision I ever made. Don't ever have kids in front of everybody. While their kids are there. It makes you feel real good. But I digress. And by the way, I want to say this too. If people are upset about me, and I don't know if I said this before, so I'm trying to cover all my bases. I'm talking about my mother and sister. They're fair game in my opinion. They became fair game when they decided to go on lolcow and put shit out about me. And most of it lies. So to me, you've given me permission to talk about you. Not that I needed it anyways. And you could argue with my mom. Yes, I did talk some about her. I talked about the abuse I came from with her and her nasty white trash boyfriend. I never once mentioned my sister. Never. Funny side story about my sister. My sister, when she found out about the YouTube channel, because we were lightly in communication at the time, was one of my biggest fans. Would text me all the time about it. I've got all the receipts. And then when I didn't do something she wanted and the tide online turned, she turned with it. I mean, when I was going on Andy Worski's stream and the Kumite and having a verified doctor, GAF, was on there verifying that the claims were all untrue, here's my sister writing messages to support Repsion's video, which has been debunked. My mother and my sister. Why would they do that? Why? It's the craziest story, isn't it? And so this is all going to get into the narcissistic stuff. So about when I was in my mid-20s, so like 10-ish years ago, I'm sitting talking to my sister. Now understand, my family, in terms of my mother and my father, and even my sister, have done horrible things, especially my parents. Horrible shit. Horrible shit to where it would leave anybody to not ever want to talk to them again. So I've gone several years without talking to them on my own volition because they will do horrible things. They don't care. They don't care. In fact, when they do horrible shit, you're fucking mentally ill for calling out the fact that they've been mean and they don't give a shit about it. And part of the problem is my sister. Where am I going with this? So I was talking to my sister and she goes, you know, this is like 10-ish years ago. I was in her house and she said, you know, you are dealing with a situation with our parents all wrong. And I said, well, what do you mean? She goes, well, you shouldn't just not ever talk to them. Like, we had a conversation about it. And I said, well, she's like, they're still your parents. I'm like, when they're doing awful things and they're toxic to me, that's not good for my mental or emotional health. And physical health, that's not good for me. No, it gives me anxiety to talk to people who are mean to me. And she said, yeah, but you're not playing the game right. And I said, what do you mean playing the game? She goes, listen, and let me explain how this trifecta works, guys. My mother and my father hate each other. My grandmother is the primary, she was like my mother had custody of us, but my grandmother was the parent. Does that make sense? So, like, she was the one that really parented us. My grandmother doesn't like either of my parents, but she is more loyal to her daughter, which is my mother, because that's her daughter, right? So she said, when one of them fucks up, it's payday. And I said, what do you mean payday? And she goes, when one of them fucks up, they're gonna feel sorry, and in return, you can get shit from them. And I said, why would I want to do that? She goes, because you can get shit. And she goes, and then furthermore, the best part is, when one fucks up, you can get shit from all of them. And I said, what do you mean? She goes, because they all hate each other, and you can play one another off of one another's sympathies, and at the end of the day, you've got a bunch of free shit. You've got bills. She said, I had bills paid. I've had, cell phones paid for. I've gotten all of this stuff anytime one of them fucks up. And I said, that's crazy. And she even said, don't worry, I'll teach you how to do it. And I said, I don't want to learn that. And she goes, well, you're not being smart about it. And I said, no, you're not being moral. And I said, what you're doing, number one, you're reinforcing their bad behaviors. Every time you do that, every time they fuck with me, they're going to be worse to me about it because they're going to feel entitled to not feel bad. I said, number two, you're paying people to be abusive. You're paying people to be assholes. Like, where's your self-respect and dignity? And she's like, it's in the shit I get. Understand, my sister is well off in life. She always has been. She's not really faced many struggles. Like, my sister's biggest struggles were maybe like stupid little relationships she got into and getting her 4-year degree. Another fun story about my sister. Here's another fun one. Sister wanted to go to law school, but it wasn't going to be paid for by my grandma, so she threw a fit. And she also wanted to go on a trip to China. My grandmother wouldn't pay for it. She threw a fit. Yeah, it's that fucking entitled and arrogant. Well, she got mad. I've talked to her about this because they didn't want to pay for her trip to China or law school. So here's what she did. She went to law school for 6 months, and in the process of that 6 months, my mom and my grandma said, we'll pay for your living expenses, like your rent, utilities. And of course, my sister wanted to be in something, that was really nice and trendy. So her rent was expensive for where we were at the time. So they were paying for everything. My sister did 6 months of law school and dropped out, didn't tell anybody, and they paid 1.5 years of her being there until they figured it out. And my sister justified it by saying, this is my trip to China. Like, who does that? Who does that? Like, who does that? I didn't get to finish school because because I constantly heard from my grandmother, we're going broke, I can't afford this. And I watched her work to the bone being 80 years old, and I'm like, I'm not gonna have a heart attack. So I backed out, but I was like, I'm not gonna take out loans for a singing degree, that's stupid. So I backed out and said, I'm young, what do I wanna do? I wanna travel, and I made it work for myself. But just to give you like a little insight into that type of behavior. And that's very much like, that type of mental gymnasticsing is very much how I grew up. It was lots and lots and lots of abuse followed by little spurts of shit. Like little spurts of like give you something to shut you up. But it was mostly my sister. I didn't get much at all. And I'm not complaining. Like I said, I'm fine with it. I've made peace with it. It's what it is. But I grew up around a lot of that stuff. A lot of it. I don't know if I said this earlier, if it cut off, and in fact, like my mother, if she watched this, she's only gonna be angry because like she wouldn't actually be upset at the behavior she's done. Neither my sister, neither. They're not actually gonna feel empathy for what they've done. Most likely, if they feel any empathy, remorse, it's because their reputation is being damaged, and or like it's being, you know, it's being tarnished in their opinion, even though I'm speaking the truth. And I have receipts to back up everything I'm saying. And because they didn't get something out of this that they wanted. My mother wanted me off the internet. Who wants their kids to fail? Who wants their kids to fail? And you know the worst part, the stuff I've talked about with my mom and my family, that's a lot of baby boomer mentality. So my story is not a singular story. You know, it's a very common one. The baby boomer generation is very selfish. I don't know if I've said this before, but to me, they're the first generation, they're not first, but they're a generation of people who don't want their kids to do better than them. They need to be top dog. And they were trained to do this. Like, they were trained to be this way. I think that the generation before them, what was it? Before the baby boomers, the ones who went through the war. I think they were so fucking traumatized. They wanted to give their kids all the best, but their kids became assholes. And that became the baby boomers, and we have to deal with them, unfortunately. By the way, disclaimer, not all baby boomers. Some people are great. Some people don't adhere to their culture. I'm just saying, the amount of stories on how our parents all act, react, talk, think the same way, it's fucking creepy. But, and all generations have their shit. All of them. I'm just bitching about this one for now, but everybody has their shit. So that's my story about my sister, or two stories, just one of several that I was thinking about. There are worse stories. I will do those one day. Not ready to talk about that yet. I'm still dealing with that and processing it. So when I'm still dealing and processing something, I tend to not make a video. Sometimes I will, just to kind of share stuff, but not with something this big. So then I want to talk about another one. Another story. Y'all remember Phildo the Wizard? Remember Phildo the Wizard? Phildo the Wizard, he was the guy in Nietzsche Stadium, or Philip Schlicker is his name. He puts it out there, so nobody get upset with me for saying it. He puts it out there. He was the guy I was internet friends with for almost 13 years, on and off. And where do I begin? Hold on. I literally need a drink of tea. Ew, that's actually Pedialyte. I thought it was gonna be tea. It's weird taste. It's watered down Pedialyte. I thought it was chamomile. Okay. Where do I begin with Phildo? If you guys remember, Phildo and I, like I said, we were friends. We were friends for 13 years. Online, we've only met once. We weren't extremely close like he likes to make it out to be. Like you know, we might go several months without talking, and then we talk and catch up. And this is the guy that I loaned $405 to because he lost his job again, and I bailed him out again. And 2 months later, he's on the internet trying to destroy my life for attention. And he was lying about the majority of it, putting out interviews on Lolcow. He doxed exes, friends, anything he could about me. And it was like, it felt like emotional rape every single day. Every single day. It was horrible. And he wouldn't stop and wouldn't stop. Basically, it was like he used information on me to further himself and for leverage. Creepiest thing. Creepy. Why would you do that to somebody who just gave me $400 to help keep your bills and your electricity on and your internet on so you could keep looking for work? Keep in mind, over the 10 years we knew him, he was a loser who always lost his job. And I have receipts. He never put this stuff out. I was always trying to help him get work. I was trying to put him on my programs, get him opportunities. Never wanted to take it. Never would take anything I had to offer to better himself in terms of work when I mean, we're talking about like $20, $25 an hour work. You know, good job, good paying work. Oh, this motherfucker. And he puts out a video, and the worst thing I did was try to help him get a job. The worst thing I did was try to help him like put his resume together, and a lot of what he said he's 100% lied about. He didn't talk about our phone conversations. He didn't talk about what really went on behind the scenes. He just jumped to conclusion and showed little bits of receipts. Didn't show the massive amount of times that over the years I've tried to help him get work, because that would make him look bad, me look good. So I was thinking about this. On the video they were talking about sociopaths and narcissists, and one thing that they'll do is they will gather information on you to use against you but say very little about themselves. And it was like, ding, 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 Phil. Now, I think anybody who knows the situation with Phildo the Wizard, let me give you a backstory if you don't. I was in the New Age community, heavily, for several years. Community, I mean, like I had those thoughts and, you know, had a lot of New Age friends and shit, which most of them are out of my life now, because I've changed a lot of those thoughts and beliefs. He thought he was a wizard, that's not a joke, and a weather witch, not a joke. When he cried, Nashville flooded, that's not a joke. I wish these were jokes. He thought that he battled aliens in his sleep and like blue giantesses just walk in the room and talk to him and shit. I don't know now if he was putting on a show, like he was literally giving me a mask of what he thought I wanted to see, even though I didn't. Like, I've been around New Agers, and you would think to yourself, Joy, why the fuck were you around him? That sounds crazy. I was around a lot of crazy New Agers for a long time, and I'm an eccentric, and I've been around other eccentric people, so I'm used to people being odd, but by far Philip took it to a level I was like, I don't know what to do. That's why when I put out some of our conversations, I'd be like, well, he'd be like, so I fought an alien last night, I took its eye, but, you know, lost an eye for its troubles, eye for an eye, and blah, 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 and all these, I'm so important, the government wants me, and I'd be like, good luck with that. I didn't know what to say. And, you know, I had a lot of weird friends, and I felt bad for him, because I didn't know much about him, but I knew he had a bad family situation. That's what he told me. Who the fuck knows if it's true? What happened was, when all this stuff came out, like when I stood up for myself, you know, and put all the information out about what was really going on with the harassment and all the lies and stuff, on the Kumite and on Andy Worski's stream last year, we found out a lot of stuff. One was that when he was 19, he dated a girl that was between 13 to 14 years old. That's not a joke. Some people will argue that. I have different receipts. People don't want to acknowledge those receipts. But I digress. If she was 13 or under, that makes him a pedo. Not a joke. That's what it is. Legal definition. I'm not going to talk too much about it right now. I might make videos on it one day. But I couldn't believe it. I was absolutely in shock. I was like, this guy I've known for a long time never told me that he dated pretty much a child. A child. And then I thought about this, and I knew this before. I've been thinking about this before, but the documentary brought it back up. I know very little about him personally. He knew all kinds of stuff, because I was open about, my life. I thought we were friends. He knew exes' names. He knew all this information about me to be able to use against me and like weaponize against me, and I knew very little about him. And I think that's how he wanted it. He would put on a mask of who he was. I knew like where he was from. I knew the crazy stories he told me. I would know he was dating somebody, but outside of that, I barely even knew the people's names he was dating. He was very, very secretive. And here's what creeps me out too. When all this was happening, I was going through our messages. Oh, this creeps me out. And I remember at one point he was upset because an ex-girlfriend that he was with at the time, there was a friend she had he didn't like. He started dropping all this information to me and then sent me a folder. It was a dossier of information about this guy. I'm not kidding you. And I was so busy at the time and sick, I just looked over it. I don't even think I opened it, to be honest with you. I just looked over it. And I'm just laughing going, oh my God, this is what he does. He lives his life on the internet. His life is shit. He's a broke fucking loser. He's a loser at life. And he hides who he really is. And then the people he does meet and befriend, he like gathers information about to use against them at different points, playing people like chess pieces. And it made me feel really sick. It made me feel really fucking ill to have that realization that this is who he is. And it just made me think about that. So yeah, I'm sorry. I know this is long-winded. I rambled a lot, but these are some of my stories about dealing with what I think are narcissists. And I know this is not a singular story. I know you guys have gone through, like my legs are starting to shake if you see me looking weird, like we're shaking, because I don't like talking about this. I don't like thinking about it. I've had so many of these types. They talked about empaths in the video. I don't remember if I've talked about this, but I am very much an empath, which is why I literally let my other channel get destroyed trying to help other people and put them above me who were doing narcissistic behaviors. Hey, Rose Hall, hey, we'll talk about that one day. One day we'll get into all that craziness. Where am I going with this? I don't like this topic at all. And empaths, sociopaths and narcissists will flock to empaths because they can manipulate and get what they want and control people. And so I've met a lot of people like this in my life, and I'm sure you have. It's scary to think 1 in 25 people is a sociopath. How many narcissists are running around? And the other thing is, don't know if I brought this up before, I think everybody can have different little traits of narcissism. You can have traits of it here and there and recognize that in yourself. Like, and I think I said this story earlier, I don't know if it was recorded, but for me, I noticed, because, like, and I also think this too, like, with narcissists and like specifically narcissists and sociopaths, that's learned, isn't it? If those are antisocial personalities, then it seems like those are behaviors that they're choosing. So they can choose to try to find ways to be able to tap into their feelings. It's somebody who's really, really emotionally shut down. And I'm not a therapist, but I would think with enough therapy, they could get better, but that's only if they're willing, because if not, they'll figure stuff out in therapy and use it against people, right? It's just like the video said. It's really, really crazy and scary to think about how many people are just so, you know, what is that? If it's not like, or is it that there's a mental tick if there's things are misfiring? But if they're misfiring, it wouldn't be, it would be more of a mental illness, right? Like, if you can't cure it, then doesn't that mean that there's some sort of self-control with it? That this is behavioral, then you can change your behavior if you choose to, or at least get better at it, you know? And like for some people like me, because I grew up around it, there were certain things I thought were acceptable in how to behave. And I see traits of my former self in that, you know, really, that still haunt me. I had to work really hard in unlearning a lot of stuff. I was somebody that my parents didn't raise me. Nobody raised me. No, if anybody raised me a little bit, it was my grandmother, but otherwise I was left on my own to figure things out. And all the influences I had were horrible. So I think sometimes you can notice these traits about yourself, and it's learned behaviors. And they become habits that you're not aware of, you know? Like I've talked about this with myself, and I've talked about Peter Munn. I don't know if I remember brought this up, but Peter Munn. I had to realize, like, you know, I realized really quickly into doing these videos, I have some of these traits. And I'm a hypocrite if I don't recognize it and look at it. And these are things I've tried to look at and deal with before in the past. And I think it's all about, like, if you recognize you have those traits, I don't think it's about trying to be a perfect person, because I've been stuck in that mindset before, like trying to be the best person I can be, which is not bad, but don't get stuck there. I think it's all about being aware of weaknesses, being aware of different things that you are or you're not, and trying to work on those to better yourself and better the people around you. That's what I think, at least. So this video has been way too long. I hope you enjoyed it, at least. I hope you enjoyed the story. Sorry if I repeated stuff. I just don't know what I'd said before, and I was on a roll. So it's frustrating. But yeah, it is scary to think that there are this many people running around, and I think the one thing we can do, and here's the thing, how do you protect yourself from it? I've talked to friends about this recently, and I've talked about this some. How do you protect yourself about it? Well, sometimes you can't, because you don't always know whether these people are who they are until later. And that's what's scary about these people. So you just have to look for traits, you have to look for patterns, you have to show by action. When they do something to fuck up and they say they're sorry, do they keep doing it without remorse? Are they just mimicking the I'm sorry? Things like that are gonna be indicators. That's like, I think I said this before, but I talked a lot about this on the former channel with talking about Onision. Funny enough, he just put out a video saying that he realizes, somebody sent this to me, that he loves himself more than the people that he's been with, and that he's, you know, kind of, you know, going through some self-reflection, which is good if it's real. Who knows? Maybe he's just saying that because he's trying to get subscribers back, but it's an interesting take. Anyway, I'm done. I hope you enjoyed this. Oh, this was a creepy video to film. Okay, I'm gonna go. I love you guys. See you soon. Take care. Blessings. Also, leave a comment, please. Every comment, I try to answer all the comments, so I'm in my comment section real fucking quick, like for the first couple hours. So leave a comment. You'll probably get a response. The quicker you comment, the quicker I'll respond. Please like the video if you do like this, and please subscribe to the notification bell if you like my content. All right, I'm gonna get out of here and do things in my day. I've been working on YouTube all day, so I love you guys. Take care, be blessings, and have fun, and mwah, goodbye. I hope you enjoyed this video. I'm gonna give one more disclaimer. Please go check out my series on internet harassers. I have a whole playlist. The last video I did was on a guy named Jaweed. I talked about why we call him that, and before, I have actual video recording of me calling the police because he made death threats on me. This is not a joke. And I think the videos on these people are really entertaining, so you're gonna enjoy it, but it's gonna showcase more of these behaviors I've talked about. So that's it. Love you guys, and I'll see you soon.